Activated, your window into an extraordinary world lived by many, yet celebrated by few. We showcase how to rally for persons with disabilities, taking you on a journey with valuable life lessons and intriguing personalities, leaving you ready for action. Activated takes us on a journey of taking lessons from persons with disabilities and how we must do things differently to unleash the contribution persons with disabilities can and must make to building a disability-inclusive Mzansi. In today's program, we focus on spirituality and disability. We meet Nafisa Mayat, a social worker by training, currently doing her PhD exploring disability inclusion within the Muslim Ummah in South Africa. We speak to Marthe-Marie Kohne about accepting that God created me this way and not focus on my disabilities. And we end our show with Rita Malangeni and talk about traditional beliefs about the causes of disability that remain prevalent across sub-Saharan Africa. Hello, and welcome to Activated with me, Helga Barkhuizen. Disability and spirituality have traditionally been understood as two distinct spheres. Disability is physical and thus belongs to healthcare professionals, while spirituality is religious and belongs to the church, synagogue or mosque. In Suid-Afrika het ons 'n aantal verskillende godsdienstorganisasies wat nou fokus op insluiting, liefde, vriendelikheid, aanvaarding, toeganklikheid en hoe dit alles oorgedra kan word aan persone met gestremthede, hul gesinne en die gemeenskap in die algemeen. In hierdie episode kyk ons na spiritualiteit en gestremdheid, stigma en diskriminasie in verskillende godsdienstige gelowe en die verandering van hierdie verskillende godsdienstige groepe en praktyke en individue in die lewens van gewone persone met gestremthede, hul gesinne en gemeenskappe in Hebreë het uitlig en beveel. Now, let's get activated. Nafisa Mayat is a social worker by training, currently doing her PhD exploring disability inclusion within the Muslim Ummah in South Africa. She is a seasoned disability inclusion ally and is well known in academic circles for her relentless advocacy for disability inclusion. She co-authored a chapter, Collaboration and Cooperation, an interfaith approach to disability inclusion, for a soon-to-be published book, Religious Hermeneutics, African Philosophies on Disability and Sustainable Development in Africa.
While people are not deliberately excluding, it's this unconscious exclusion that's been happening. And it's a lot related to the lack of knowledge around disability. And so that is where the change needs to happen. I was pleasantly surprised that the imams that I approached were very open to this. They were not defensive. They were saying, yes, we're doing some things. There's someone with a disability in our congregation, but we need to do more. And we need to make it such that there is that inclusion that happens. I think one of the very significant things that I'd like to highlight is that when we get to the mosque, we need to, because you do the ablution and then you need to remove your shoes and then get onto the carpet to pray. And there is this unawareness of the barrier of those shoes because you remove it quickly even though you have a shelf where you need to put it. People most often don't do that. And if there's someone using a wheelchair or someone with crutches that come in there, they need to negotiate that. And so they cannot go further into the front of the mosque to pray. So you might come on a day where you feel, today I just need peace and I need to sit quietly and connect deeper with my God. So I'd like to go right in front so there isn't any disturbance. But that choice is taken away from the person with a disability using a wheelchair or using crutches, for example, or the lack of sign language interpreters or transcriptions for someone that's deaf. That is where the exclusion happens. The voices of persons with disabilities have to be elevated so that shift happens where now persons with disabilities are on the margins and we need to bring them into the center. And what's important, the voices of persons with disabilities are very important. And when we make this change and move to the center, it's not just in the mosque coming to pray, but what other spaces are open for persons with disabilities to be part of? As an imam, as a teacher in a madrasa, which is a school in the Islamic education that we go, often our children start from a very young age, after school or within the school system. One of the things that I do a lecture in one of our programs is disability and spirituality, because spirituality has an important place in many people's lives, even if you're not following a formal faith. And sometimes people with disabilities, all of us, and people with disability, you know, spirituality, you make sense of the world around you, and it grounds people. And so it's just as important to a person with a disability as it is with non-disabled people. And what we found is that disability, spirituality, and religion, it's an area that's not really given much focus on in disability studies as well, critical disability studies, not only nationally, internationally. And hopefully that this study, mine and others in this field, which is still new, will start changing that narrative, that discourse that's been ignored. And because it plays an important role, as I say, in everybody's lives. And it's been ignored as if someone with a disability, spirituality is not important. And so we're not focusing on that area. I think in this study, as I said earlier, I had to question myself a lot. And one of the things, uncomfortable things that I sat with was that I consider myself an advocate and activist around disability, and my family will know that very well. But what has been my role in this unconscious exclusion that was highlighted? And it's not a very comfortable space to be in, but that I'm so glad that I was given this opportunity. I feel privileged that I was given this opportunity to do this work, to engage with persons with disabilities and the priests, and to see that what's out there is that people are very open to make this change. It's now how we do this, and that momentum is not dimmed, and that we take this forward and we make that change. So I feel privileged, especially listening to the deep experiences of my participants with disabilities, and that now it's that responsibility that we have to take it forward and make the change.
After the break, we chat with Marthe-Marie Kohne, who is the founder of Abilities Without Limits, where they educate and raise awareness on cerebral palsy and accessibility challenges. The surgeon told her parents she had a 10% chance of surviving. Diagnosed with hemiplegia cerebral palsy, her disability has never stopped her from leading a very full and remarkable life. Ons is nou weer terug. Welcome back. In her ministry, Marthe-Marie teaches about love, acceptance, and kindness. Her mission is to change the narrative that a disability is a curse or punishment by highlighting that everyone was created in God's image. Her focus is on children because she believes that if children are taught early in life about different disabilities, then they can change the narrative for both the young and old. Welcome, Marthe-Marie. It's such a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
What motivated you to start your organization?
I was actually disabled since prior to birth, and my mom was about 7 months pregnant when she went to the doctor for a checkup, and then they discovered I had no heartbeat, and they had to do emergency C-section, and I was in incubator for about 3 months, and they actually went to from one doctor to the other because they realized that I had some developmental delays, and eventually they met a pediatrician who referred them to a neurosurgeon, and they discovered I've got a slow death syndrome.
Okay.
So what happened in my case, the umbilical cord was around my neck, and they told my parents they had to insert a VP shunt, and I had a 10% chance of surviving even though they insert the shunt. And if I survived that, the chances were 100% that I would end up in a home for disabled. I won't be able to walk, talk, feed myself or dress myself.
That must have been really tough for your parents.
Yeah, I was actually operated about a year after my birth, and it was on my mom's birthday. What a gift, but anyway.
Yes.
Well, over the years, they raised me just as they raised my siblings, and people used to ask me, but what is cerebral palsy? And I realized that there's actually such a lack of information. People didn't know what cerebral palsy is, and I felt that's why it's so important to start an organization to educate people and raise awareness. We 17 million people globally with cerebral palsy, and each one uniquely different from the other.
Marthe-Marie, dealing with all of these challenges, what role does spirituality and faith play?
Definitely a huge role. I believe that God, has given my parents a special gift. To know what they need to do in the situation, in that current situation they were, and I see my disability as an ability. My disability enables me to focus on my abilities.
How would you find disability in a Christian context? How do people as Christians deal with disability? We know that people hide kids, for instance, that have disabilities. Give us your take on that.
Well, you're quite right. There are people that do hide their children. I think it's not right to do so. If you walk past a person with a disability and you pull your child away from that person, they're going to associate it with negativity and pain. And that's what we don't want. Because we want to create a platform for inclusion, not exclusion.
How would you say does Christianity deal with the discrimination and the stigma around people with disabilities? Is there something that can be done? Can we change our mindset?
Definitely. I mean, if you walk past a person with a disability and start a conversation with them, because if your child sees that you are having a conversation with a person with a disability, they'll follow you by example. And I'm specifically saying a person with a disability, because first and foremost, the disabled person is a person just like anybody else.
How does the church support people with disabilities? Are there specific quotes that you can maybe highlight for us that tell people that there's love in the air and that it's not something to shy away from?
I think, you might not always have control over your muscles or the way that you move, but there's one thing that you do have control over, and it's the way you perceive yourself. You have to believe in yourself. It all boils down to self-belief, and it starts with you, and that's all by the grace of God.
Marthe-Marie, anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Yes, definitely. For parents out there who do have children with cerebral palsy, or it's not only limited to cerebral palsy, but any type of other disability, they're welcome to connect with us at Abilities Without Limits. We create a place and space for acceptance and inclusion.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
After the break, we meet up with Rita Malangeni, a traditional healer from the Eastern Cape. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Rita grew up around stigma and discrimination, and it is believed that in the rural villages, there is still the stigma that comes with having a disability. Ons het 'n draai by Rita gaan maak. It was believed that she was bewitched or that her parents had committed a sin, and that was a punishment from her ancestors. This motivated her to start an initiative in her village to offer support and hope to other people that have different impairments that are in despair, while changing the narrative and raising awareness. She believes that she is the right person for that because of her impairment. She is also a volunteer board member at a local TB hospital in Nkqubela.
Ndikhulela apha eMdantsane, ndingumama ndasololwa ngumyeni. Ndangusangoma, ndilapha eMdantsane. Yayi-bus boycott 1984 apha eSiskay. So ndatshayiswa yitrain eMount Road Station. Imke ingalo yam ndaphela ndinengalo enye. Ndandiphila ndinengalo ezimbini, kodwa ngoku ingalo yam inye, futhi le ngalo imkileyo yasekunene kwasike eyasenxele ingalo. Phila ngayo ke ngoku, ndincedakele ke kugqirha. Bawundifundise ndakwazi. Mna esibhedlele ndiseNkqubela TB Hospital. ndiyi-board member phaa emele udisability enkqubela TB Hospital. Kubuziwe phaa kum, Rita, uzayincedisa ngantoni? Uzayincedisa ngantoni i-TB Hospital? Ndathi mna ndifuna ubabonisa umsebenzi wezandla. Aba bantu balele apha ndiyabazi ukuthi badefaultile kwipilisi nabatya na-alcohol, bazibona belapha, so akuphelanga bomi, bayazi ukuthi bazowuphila xa begodukile. Ndabafundisa umsebenzi wezandla mna, babone kum Rita, ndayobabonisa, banomdla kakhulu, bathini kuyaphilwa apha. Ndenzela uba xa bamkileyo apha esibhedlele, xa bakwazi ukuphila bengaphandle. Indlela enophuhlisa ngayo mna abantu, ndicinga uba ndingathi xana le nto seyifikile emntwini makayamkele, ngoba kaloku ifike kuye futhi uyikhwazwa ngabantu abadala kuye, ngoku funeka eyamkelile. Ndicinga uba mna loo nto ingasincedisa nathi singabantu abakhubazekileyo. Sele ukhubazekile, xa ufikile kule meko yokuba ungudisability waze ungusangoma, yamkela uba sangoma kwakho. Izinto zisichitho nezintoni apha emvelini yabantu abangamaXhosa abengamagqirha zizinto ezikhona, ngoba sebaziphile abantu ngamaXhosa futhi banemveli. Kumele izinto bani ziyavela kubo, zibe khona. Andikholelwa mna basisiqalekiso. Ndiye ndagula mna, andakwazi uphakama ebhedini, andikwazi uhamba. Xa ndibuza le nto kwathi ubizelwa ngabantu abadala, so awuzothi uzayo emakhiwane wena, kumele usabele ibizo labantu abadala. Ndasabela ke. Banombuzo nabo, babuza, hey, abantu abakhubazekileyo khe bebe ngamagqirhana, ayinoba noko bayasayilona ngoku abantu bakhubazekileyo, ngoba kaloku egqibeleni abantu abakhubazekileyo babajongela phantsi. Baye bavuya kaloku xa ndikhubazekile ndibiziwe ngabantu abadala, baqonda kakuhle mna ndibiziwe nyani, ngoba xa bendingabizwanga bendingazovuma. Bavuya baba ndibona ndikhubazekile, ndifuna uba ndibasabele ubizo lam, bavuya kakhulu. So ndabizwa ke ndasebenza. Ndicinga uba ibalulekile kakhulu kum, ngoba kaloku akho nto ndinoze ndiyenze umoya ungekho. Ndicinga uba ibalulekile uba umoya usahambisane nam ngoba ndikhubazekile. Ndicinga uba mna loo nto kum ibalulekile uba kubekho umntu ozayo kum afune into. Ndicinga uba mna ndikholwa ngoba ayisiso tu isiqalekiso, uThixo kanazayenze loo nto. Andipanisha kacingi, ndibula nesiphiwo sam mna qha ndisifumeneyo. Ndicinga aba bantu mna abanayo into enobenza bakholelwa, ngoba bona abayiqondi kakuhle le nto, bayibona qha kodwa abakholelwa kuyo. Abanathi bayakholelwa, bayibona nje uyihambi isenzeka, abayiboni kakuhle aba bantu le nto. Bayayibona nje ndikhona kuyo, kodwa bona abaqondi kakuhle uba inoba mani utheni uRita, hayi mani uRita. Uyayibona, kaloku abantu abazofana nam, futhi abantu bacinga ngendlela, abacinga ngendlela ezifanayo. Yiyo loo nto kunjalo, omnye akholelwe, omnye angakholelwa, asicinga okufanayo. Kaloku apha ekuhlaleni into abayaziyo ngam inye qha kuba uRita lo kaMalangeni usebenza umsebenzi wezandla, ekhubazekile. Uyaphinda lo Rita Malangeni akanangalo, uligqirha. So nje abantu bavele babe confused, bavele badideke. Kaloku abantu ndiyabaxelela, akuphelanga bomi xa sinjena. Mabandamkele nam ndiyabamkela, mabayaba ubomi abuphelanga ubomi bandinjeni. Le nto iphila kum seyikum ngoku, andikwazi ukwenza ngenye indlela. Indlela endimkhathalela ngayo umntu onedisability, xana ngoku esenguye usangoma, mna ndifuna ukumncedisa kwizinto angazaziyo. Ndimncedise ndithi mhlawumbi iyeza, kukho iyeza ufuna usebenzisa iyeza elithile, ndithi no, eli iyeza lidibana neli ze libe kanti liyeza singamnceda umntu asele aphile. Izinto endijongene nazo ibizezi zokubana xa ndizawuqala lo 2023 mna ndizixelele okokubana akho mntu uzohlala phantsi ekhubazekile ndikhona mna. Funeka umntu okhubazeka avuka phakame, ngoba kaloku urhulumente esinaye thina akananto, uthi vuka uzenzele. Iyo ke ngolaa nto yandibangela into yobana mna Rita Malangeni mandiphakame. Ndicinga uba mna abantu abangu-disability bengusangoma masibamkeleni singabantu ekuhlaleni, singabajaji sithi no abamelanga babe kule nto, masibamkeleni bangelaa hlobo balilo, bakhubazekile bangosangoma masibamkeleni thina singabantu kwiikhomyuniti zethu, singabajongeli phantsi ababantu. Into mna ndicinga fanuba ngoku ndicinga uba fanuba ndivuyiswa kubakhokhweni abangaphakathi endlini nam nabantu abanedisabilities ababona ukuthi naxa bandibona kuloo mabonakude xa ndivelile babe nomdla into endiyithethayo, futhi bakhuthaze nabanye abantu kwiindawo abahlala kuzo, bayazi ukuthi akuphelanga bomi xa benedisability, busekhona ubomi nosele endaweni umntu nohleli ngaphezu kwebhede nohleli endaweni umntu onedisability makayamkele laa nto necommunity imamkele. I-West especially abantu bakokwenu kusinengxaki yeefemeli zethu, azisithandi xa sikhubazekile futhi azisamkeli. Ngoku le nto wena mntu ngokwakho funeka uyiphile ngokwakho, uba ingakwamkeli uyazi ukuthi wena kulahlela ngobubomi, qha uyazi ukuthi ngenye imini uzawuba rayithi wena futhi uzayibona le nto uphila yona.
En so het ons weer eens gekom aan die einde van nog 'n lekker kuier saam met julle. Bly veilig tot volgende week, selfde plek, selfde tyd, en on SABC2 You Belong. Join, like and share Activated on Facebook.